Introduction. Idioms and phrasal verbs. Idioms and phrasal verbs forms part of the Oxford Word Skills Vocabulary Series. It is a series of 2 books for students to learn, practice, and revise every day. English idioms and phrasal verbs. There are over 1,000 new idioms and phrasal verbs in each level, and all of the material can be used in the classroom or for self-study. How are the books organized? Each book contains 60 units of vocabulary presentation and practice. Units are 1 to 3 pages long, depending on the topic. New vocabulary is presented in manageable quantities for learners, with practice exercises following immediately. Usually on the same page, the units are grouped together thematically in modules of 4 to 9 units.
Modules, a unit that can form part of a course of study, especially at a college or university in the UK.
At the end of each module there are further practice exercises in the review units, so that learners can revise and test themselves on the vocabulary learned. At the back of each book you will find an answer key for all the exercises, an answer key for the review units, a list of the spotlight boxes, a list of all the idioms and phrasal verbs taught, with a unit reference to where each item appears, a separate list of keywords with unit references, a page featuring the histories behind some of the idioms in the book. Look on the website www.tube.com/elt/wordskills for more. What are idioms and phrasal verbs? Why teach them together? Idioms are usually defined as groups of words whose meaning is different from the individual words. So, under the weather has nothing to do with the literal meaning of the weather, it means feeling ill.
Literal, usually before a noun, being the most basic meaning of a word or phrase, rather than an extended or poetic meaning.
If you sweep something under the carpet, you try to keep something secret, and if you put someone in the picture, you give them the information they need to understand a situation. As these examples illustrate, in some idioms the meaning can be almost impossible to guess out of context, while others are more transparent.
Transparent, straightforward or direct.
Phrasal verbs consist of 2 and occasionally 3 words, a base verb and at least 1 particle, preposition or adverb. Many phrasal verbs are idiomatic.
Idiomatic, containing expressions that are natural to a native speaker of a language.
In other words, the meaning of the verb and particle is different from the base verb on its own. For example, the meanings of give up and give in are quite different from the meaning of give.
Give in, to admit that you have been defeated by somebody, something.
As with idioms, some phrasal verbs are more transparent than others. For example, stand up and the most common meaning of stand are very similar in meaning, as are sit down and sit. In other words, phrasal verbs can be seen as a type of idiom, although they are often singled out for specific attention in language teaching materials. Putting idioms and phrasal verbs together has a linguistic rationale, but perhaps an even greater pedagogic one.
Rationale, the principles or reasons which explain a particular decision, course of action, belief, etc. Pedagogic, relating to the practice of teaching and its methods.
A relatively short passage of text, a practical necessity in most language teaching materials, does not normally produce 9 or 10 naturally occurring phrasal verbs, but it can easily yield that number if the target language includes both phrasal verbs and idioms. This makes it easier to present the target language in continuous text rather than disconnected sentences, and gives learners more opportunity to see the expressions being used naturally, and to use them themselves in a realistic way.